Hello, everyone. Welcome to Southeastern 14. I am Blayne Gilmer once again here for an episode of Jake's Takes on Southeastern 14. We will have Jake Crain with Crain and Company from the Daily Wire here with us just momentarily. Wanted to tell you today's episode brought to you by CHOMPS. Make sure you check out CHOMPS if you want a healthy snack loaded with protein, lots of different flavors, all that good stuff. Check it out in the description in the video below. And then also, if you want to partner here with Southeastern 14, hit up caroline.smith at southeastern14.com and you can be our MVP of Southeastern 14. But the MVP of this show is none other than Jake Crain. And Jake, thank you so much for joining us here for Jake's Takes on Southeastern 14.
No, man, I'm excited. We got a heck of a slate this weekend. I mean, all across the country, all different time zones. It's Separation Saturday, as we're calling it over there at Crain and Company.
Oh yeah, I mean it's unreal. So many different matchups, like you said. Just a tremendous amount of ranked matchups, some conference play, all that kind of stuff. So I'm super excited, but wanted to hit right off the bat with something that's kind of close to your heart as an Auburn guy. Want to talk about that Auburn Texas A&M matchup. This has grown to an 8-point advantage in the Vegas odds, depending on where you look for Texas A&M. It's going to be a noon Eastern, 11 Central kickoff. But my question to you is, Auburn's been dealing with some musical chairs in the secondary, and we know that they're going to get Pritchett back off that ankle. They're getting Kaufman back, the safety from a concussion protocol, and we're able to get some younger players some experience. But this is a tough first test for those guys coming back from injury with those Texas A&M receivers.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, Pritchett hadn't been able to play all year. I mean, it's almost to the point now where you're gaining people. Kaufman went down, was playing good earlier. I think he's a really good fit. Kind of the way they were able to bring him on blitzes in Ron Roberts' offense, but having DJ James over there and the young kid Lee at corner has played well, but it is a tough test. I mean, you have a group of receivers at A&M with Evan Stewart, Noah Brown, and Aniyah Smith. Then Donovan Green at tight end that really can present some problems, not only on the outside, but also, from the slot. They get in space. They're really dangerous. But, if there was a place where Auburn could afford to take a hit, it's in the back end. That's the strength of their team. Getting Pritchett back, you may have to knock a little rust off from a game standpoint. It's not like he's going to forget how to play football, but having Kaufman back is going to be huge. He's a guy, again, I mentioned earlier, he's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, but you always want to go in. Nobody's ever 100% after the first game. That's a magical number that doesn't exist. But I feel like Auburn, again, at the end of the day, that's a matchup I'm very intrigued to watch, but it's going to come down to how well you rush the passers, typically how well those DBs end up playing.
No doubt. Texas A&M getting Bryce Foster, their center back. He sat out the last game against ULM. More precautionary than anything. He dressed out, probably could have played, but they elected to hold him out. So Connor Weigman will get his center back to set those protections and try to thwart that Auburn pass rush a little bit. Conversely, on the other side, the secondary, which many people thought would be a strength with all the experience they were bringing back, particularly with Damani Richardson and then Tony Grimes, an experienced corner from UNC transferring in to Texas A&M. But they really, really floundered against Miami, not being able to tackle well in space, giving up chunk plays in that secondary on busted coverages. Do you feel like that's something that Hugh Freeze and company will be able to exploit against A&M on Saturday?
Well, I know they're going to attack it. I mean, Auburn's got to have somebody on the outside at receiver, step up. It's been really Javarius Johnson and Jay Fair, and then Rivaldo Fairweather, the tight end, flex Y, whatever you want to call them. But we know they're talented. The DeBerry kid who transferred in from Boston College, a really good player too. When I look at the matchup, the one thing that shocked me about the Miami game with Texas A&M, if you would have told me, because Miami did run a kickback, that they would have scored 41 points on A&M's defense, I would think with the way Mario wants to run it, that at the end of the day, they lined up and pounded it, and it was play action, and they were taking shots and hit a bunch of big plays. I mean, it was a lot of 3-step and 5-step drop. I mean, Van Dyke looked as healthy as ever, but I was disappointed with the physicality at the end of the game. by the A&M secondary. They turned it down a couple times, which surprised me. You know, they didn't really adjust either. DJ Durkin, that's on him. They kind of kept it the same against Miami the whole game, but they're talented enough to do it. And if Auburn doesn't have anybody step up at the outside, you know, at the X, the Z, whatever you want to call it, then it's going to be able to they're going to be able to funnel everything inside and try and take away the slot guys. So it's a matchup that's going to be interesting. Who's going to be the first one to blink? Who can make the plays on 50-50 balls? And right now, that one, you know, at the end of the day, it's one of those games where if you're Auburn coming in and you've had receivers struggle on the outside, you want to go ahead and fix a lot of things quickly, make a couple plays on some jump balls in the red zone in this game, and you'll be feeling a whole heck of a lot better.
And I think they're going to have to do some different things a little bit schematically. You and I were talking, you know, before today, we were talking about the Auburn pass concepts against Cal on the road, and this will be another road game. You know, you had a lot of times Cal sitting back there playing quarters coverage, and we know that Auburn likes to use that sniffer back. So you really got three receivers out there most of the time, and they're running, you know, all curls at the sticks against quarters coverage and basically getting double teamed on one side. And Peyton Thorne was looking to that side over there, which blew my mind. Like, do you feel like that Samford game, they kind of mixed it up a little bit more and are going to maybe bring a couple of wrinkles here towards Texas A&M?
Yeah, well, I mean, Auburn's been really vanilla, not only in the pass game, but in the run game, too, for the first three. It's almost like they've been trying to save, you know, opening up the whole bag for some, you know, this game, this A&M game, and this stretch of games that they're having to play. Because, I mean, it's kind of murderer's row that Auburn has coming up. They're not going to be able to just go out there and throw vanilla ice cream at Texas A&M and be able to move them around up front the way that they want to. So, yeah, they went to Cal with a very simple game plan. And even with that, Peyton Thorne has not been great reading the RPO. I was on a show earlier, an Auburn show, talking about it's not his legs. That was my biggest worry, that maybe he couldn't run enough to be effective in the RPO. Obviously, we know his ability to throw the ball. We saw a couple really good deep balls against Samford, but it's his reading ability, which as a coach's son, kind of shocked me, because you have to read this thing at a 90-95% clip for it to be effective. So that's something I'm looking at against A&M. How can I put more on your plate if you're not going to eat what's already on there?
Yeah, you talked about being vanilla. I went down and looked at the breakdown of what Auburn did on first down, particularly against Cal. It was, I believe, 18 runs to 8 passes in terms of what it ended up being. Some of those were called passes that ended up, you know, probably being runs, but counter and zone, not even zone read, just counter and straight zone were part of the main things there. So maybe a little mix up there, whether it's Ashford or, you know, Peyton Thorne. You know, we know Hugh Freeze can get a little creative when it comes to quarterback runs and also just the running game in general.
Yeah, and, you know, you're feeling stuff out at different position groups. I think you saw some of that. But, you know, bringing in Robbie Ashford, you have to have a package in there where he's able to throw the ball to keep defenses honest, even in 3rd and short, 4th and short, and on the goal line and in the red zone. If he comes in there and you're 75% slanted one way, especially out of tendencies you get the more games you play out of formations, personnel groupings, motions, and things like that, then you're really fighting uphill. But I would not be surprised at all if you saw a lot of new formations, a lot of new wrinkles from this Auburn offense, especially early, probably a couple trick plays, because it just feels like they've been trying to get through these first 3 games. Now they're through it. Now you got to get deep in that magician's bag, or as Job off of Arrested Development would call it, illusions, Father. Illusions.
Illusions. Absolutely. It's going to be a fun game to watch. That gets the action started there. Like I said, 12 Eastern, 11 Central. But then we turn our attention to what I view as the game of the day, and that is Ole Miss at Alabama. Alabama somehow, Jake, I don't know, maybe Vegas knows more than me. Alabama somehow is a 6.5-point favorite, even after the 2 clunkers that they've played the last 2 weeks. I know they're more talented when you look at just the talent composite, but Ole Miss is coming in there playing really good football with Jackson Dart. My question to you is, you know, Saban went out on Pat McAfee's show this week and said, hey, Jalen Milroe doesn't have to prove anything. He's our guy. So my question to you is, if he is the guy, do you think Nick Saban allows Tommy Rees to call this offense more like a 2020 Notre Dame with Ian Book than what he did against Texas with all that drop back passing?
Yeah, well, I mean, if he's got nothing else to prove, then why'd you bench him last week against South Florida? I mean, look, I get it, right? You want your quarterback to have confidence, and I understand it's a mind game, and this is a humongous game to try and turn it around if you're Alabama. But he comes out and turns the ball over early, then they're going to take him out of the game. Now, the question is, you don't have a lot behind him, but yeah, at some point, you've got to tailor this offense to the strength of your quarterback and your team. The coach's job is to put the players in the best position possible to have the most success possible. And I know Nick Saban knows that. It feels like they've been trying to shove a square peg in a round hole with Jalen Milroe. And you see some flashes of zone read stuff, RPOs. I mean, heck, he pulled the zone read and flipped the ball out to Jermaine Burton to get a first down against Texas. It looked just like 2013 Auburn and Nick Marshall's offense under Gus Malzahn. But I think, honestly, you've got to take it a step further than 2020 Notre Dame with Ian Book. Because even in that, you had a decent amount of drop back. I actually think that's more of a version of what they've been running than anything. But to me, and it's not watering down the offense as much as it is opening it up in a different way, getting him on the move, running sprint out, putting pressure on the defense at multiple spots. So, yes, I mean, I know Nick Saban wants to get back to bully ball, but obviously that's not working. And I think one of the best compliments I can give Nick Saban, and you don't see this a lot in any business, let alone college football, is he's been malleable when he's gotten to the top as well. It's not just malleable to get to the top. Go back to the hurry up, no huddle. All he did was complain about it. This is the worst thing ever. Well, he realized they weren't going to change the rule, and football was changing. So what did he do? He went and hired some of the best hurry up, no huddle guys that there is, and was able to win with it. So I think they will adjust. I think this is a game right now I'm looking at. We're making our picks with David Pollack on our Saturday show. I recommend everybody checking that out. But this is a game that I think Alabama, if they can eliminate the penalties and the stupid decisions, Blayne, the thing that is most unrecognizable about Alabama, I've been talking about they don't have a monopoly on the offensive line and defensive line anymore like they used to, but they're a low football IQ team. I mean, look at the amount of penalties that they're having at home, on the road. Yeah. You're running up trying to catch punts that you shouldn't catch. When Alabama was dominating and just beating everybody to sleep, it wasn't just that they had players that were just better from a physical and athletic standpoint. They had players that were also smarter than you. They would make less mistakes and be more physically gifted than you. Right now, they're on par physically as a physical gift standpoint with other top teams, maybe even a little bit below, and they're making stupid mistakes. You can't survive in a world like that.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of Alabama, what do you think could potentially give them the most problems, Ole Miss wise? What Lane Kiffin does, of course, you got the familiarity of Pete Golding coming back. He knows that personnel in and out. What are you thinking is maybe the most worrisome thing for Alabama if you're looking from an Ole Miss standpoint?
I would think not getting a pass rush. I mean, Quinn Ewers and look, Texas's offensive line is better than Ole Miss's. Ole Miss's offensive line got punked a little bit by Tulane. I think they're going to answer the bell a little bit there. But Quinn Ewers showed up to Bryant-Denny with a clean jersey, and it left just as clean. Hell, maybe even cleaner if he squirted some water on it when he was on the sidelines. So if Alabama can't create pressure, Jackson Dart can run too. But he's the leading quarterback rusher in the SEC per carry. And Lane's going to scheme this thing up like Sark, right? If you look, Sark had it schemed up. They were changing splits, kind of going against normal rules of football that you follow. The safeties were confused. The nickels were confused. The corners weren't passing the right things off on the underneath. Lane can be able to do all that. The question is, can the Ole Miss offensive line stymie Alabama's pass rush and make Alabama have to manufacture pressure by bringing 5, 6 guys, which leaves them naked in the back end? You're getting Franklin back. The wide receiver group at Ole Miss is as good as anybody's. Judkin's health, we don't really know. But if Ole Miss's offensive line plays well in pass pro, that is going to give Alabama a lot of problems because Lane's going to have it dialed up.
Yeah, and they're also getting Caden Prieskorn, the tight end from Memphis that transferred in. He's practiced this week in a non-contact jersey, but he's been practicing, whereas Trey Harris.
With Michael Trigg, who's not exactly, Becky, Icebox from the Little Giants out there either.
No, it's a lot of weapons for Lane and a lot of familiarity. That's why I think a lot of people are over on that side. But guys, if you want to check out the picks from Crain and Company, like you said, make sure you check out them with David Pollack on Saturday to see what's going on there. Now, I also wanted to talk to you about another matchup that is kind of off the radar in terms of SEC, relevancy maybe, but in terms of the future, not only of this season, but going forward of two programs, I think this Mississippi State South Carolina game is big. Yeah. And that spread, since I made this graphic, has grown to favor 6.5 in favor of South Carolina. But it is a night game in Williams-Brice Stadium. And I put the key there for me, Jake, who finds balance in their offense? Because both have been kind of tilted heavy one way or another. How big do you think this game is, particularly for Zach Arnett and for Shane Beamer in terms of the future of their programs?
Yeah, look, it's big for both of them, but for different reasons. I mean, Mississippi State got embarrassed against LSU. Nothing was working. And you don't want to leave a sour, taste in the fan base's mouth as a new head coach taking over a program like Mississippi State. And look, not that he's going to get fired if they lose this game, but you need to look competitive. You need to look like you're able to make adjustments and you have an answer for things and that you're on time. Now, when you look at it from a South Carolina standpoint, you got really up for that Georgia game, played the best half I've seen him play all year, honestly, in the first half. You kind of abandoned the game plan that got you there in the second half, and Georgia took the training wheels off Carson Beck. But look, the transitive property in college football is a dangerous one to use, especially if you're a gambler. I mean, if you're gambling on the game, see the way that Boston College played against Holy Cross compared to the way they played against Florida State. Mississippi State's going to come in pissed off. They're going to come in embarrassed. South Carolina, they're beat up. We know Juice Wells is out. They're down a couple guys, but you are at home. And I've coached it at Williams-Brice. It gets nuts. They get the towels waving in there. They get the techno going. They just basically turn it into the red light district, and it gets all nuts in there. So it's big for both of them, but for different reasons. And you look ahead to the schedules that they have. I mean, you're just getting in to the choppy waters. I mean, you were hanging out at the sandbar, drinking a cocktail. Now you're getting into the stormy weather and the big waves and the heavy winds. So you don't want to start out 0-2 in this league. And Shane Beamer, not like he's going to get fired, but they do have some momentum in recruiting. You can kind of see the beach through the forest a little bit with them right now. And, man, go ahead and get that first win under their belt and just trying to get back to a bowl game. That'd be a big accomplishment with what he had coming in on the offensive line this year. I was shocked they didn't try and go grab a bigger body out of the portal. I mean, I'm sure they did. They just didn't land one. But it's big for both of them, but for different reasons.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And then on the SEC as a whole, it's already been crazy. We saw Tennessee unexpectedly lose to Florida. I mean, a lot of people thought Florida could do it, but I don't think many people thought that Florida would run the ball that dominantly. We saw LSU bounce back against Mississippi State, like you talked about earlier. We've seen Alabama look vulnerable. Arkansas, loses one to BYU and looks bad doing it. Where is the SEC at as a whole right now in your mind, and where does this all sort out? But Missouri, big win over Kansas State last week. So where do you think things stand in terms of East and West and SEC picture overall?
Well, man, I think the picture is going to stay muddy for a while, which, as a college football fan, is great. I mean, typically we've been able to look at one or two teams and say, all right, here's who's going to play in the conference championship game probably. How good of a year is everybody else going to have? I know Missouri's coming off a big win. There's still some questions there, even though Luther Burden's incredible. Brady Cook's making great decisions with the ball, which is good to see because he's had a ton of potential. But it's like one of those pictures that somebody sends you that you got to tap the image and it gets less blurry and less blurry and less blurry. I don't think we're going to have a legitimate answer to things or really know how it's going to fall, at least for another 3 to 4 weeks when we get some of these matchups. I mean, there's really no team. I know Georgia looked really good in the second half. But really outside of them and LSU, I mean, bouncing back the way they did, but you don't want to see them revert back to what they did against Florida State, not attacking the deep third, getting beat physically. I don't think the picture is going to be clear for a while, which, it's going to be fun to find out. That's for sure.
Other than Ole Miss, Alabama, of course, Auburn, Texas A&M, and it can be outside the conference as well. What are some things this Saturday that you're looking most forward to find out about college football, about these teams across the board?
Man, well, staying in the SEC, I think Missouri playing Memphis coming off a big win is one to watch. I mean, Brady Cook's questionable right now. Ryan Silverfield needs that big road win against a big-time team. He still hadn't got it yet, and with the Seth Hennigan kid at quarterback, Memphis can be dangerous. So I'm interested to see how Missouri bounces back. Outside of the marquee, SEC matchups that we've talked about, looking across the country, Oregon State, Washington State. I'm interested to see how DJU plays in a tight game where guys just aren't, running wide open like the chick on the mountain in The Sound of Music. Oregon State's a really physical team. I mean, obviously, Ohio State, Notre Dame, we're going to find out a lot about Kyle McCord and Ohio State. But, man, it's everywhere. Florida State and Clemson, right? Is Clemson, who's backed in a corner right now. That loss week 1 wasn't just any loss. It was a conference loss. You lose this one, there's no divisions anymore in the ACC. You're down 2 tiebreakers, and you're 0-2 in the conference. That is not a position that you want to be in. So, littered all throughout the country, there's some really, really good games. I mean, even Texas Tech going to West Virginia, needing a win. West Virginia's down their quarterback. I mean, all across college football, there's so many great games going on. Very interested. You got maybe what could be the ugliest game in the history of games offensively between Oklahoma State and Iowa State. First 1-1 wins. If anybody can figure out a way to just score 1 point only in college football, it's going to happen in that game. So, man, there's narratives all over the place.
In your opinion, for SEC fans who want the SEC, of course, to be represented as much as it possibly can in the college football playoff, and that's getting a little tougher with the resumes of some of these teams early, do you think they should be rooting for Notre Dame to lose and also FSU to lose this weekend? Because a 1-loss FSU and a 1-loss Notre Dame, in my opinion, if they go with just 1 or no losses, that significantly, throws a monkey wrench in SEC, even the possibility of getting 2 in there. 1's going to be safe, but, SEC is pretty used to getting 2 in there at this point.
Well, I almost think you root for Notre Dame because at the end of the day, if Ohio State wins this one, and they lose at Michigan and then don't play in the Big Ten championship game, that's a 1-loss Ohio State team that could sneak in there. And, Notre Dame still has to play USC. They still got to play Duke. They still got to go to Clemson. So I think the odds of Notre Dame actually losing a game or a couple games after this one against Ohio State is higher. When it comes to Florida State, I mean, if Florida State gets past this one with their schedule at the end of the day, that's one you may need to go ahead and just pencil in, not pin in, but pencil in where you can still erase it. I think the Pac-12 is going to cannibalize each other. I think you're going to start seeing that going down here in a couple weeks. So I'm not too worried about that if you're an SEC fan. But I would actually root for Notre Dame this week. And yeah, you want Clemson to win this game. You want as much chaos in the ACC as possible because a 2-loss FSU doesn't get in over a 1-loss LSU.
Absolutely. Well, guys, he is Jake Crain, who has joined us once again, as he does each and every Friday here. Jake's takes on Southeastern 14. Jake, as we always do, tell them how they can catch what you guys have going on at Crain & Company on the Daily Wire.
Definitely, Blayne. Well, I always love chopping it up with you guys, man. Y'all do a heck of a job over at Southeastern 14. Love y'all's content as well. But yeah, if you want to check out Crain & Company, easiest way, go to YouTube. It's CRAIN and Company. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We have a Saturday game day special show that we drop actually on Friday nights. David Pollock is our guest picker. Yeah, we snagged him away. So make sure you check that out. We have a Sunday recap in the morning and an NFL preview. Have a lot of fun live calls, which have been crazy this week with the amount of trash talk that's gone on, and a live chat as well. We go live in the morning, 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central, but it stays on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Spotify forever. But, man, it's going to be a great week of football watching. I'm ready for it. Let's get it.
Separation Saturday is what they're calling it over at Crain & Company. And that, if you want the separation from everybody else in terms of daily SEC coverage, Southeastern 14 is the place to do it. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave your comments right here. Make sure to follow Jake and those guys if you don't already, which if you don't, I don't know what rock you've been under because they are killing it over there. Absolutely doing a great job. So, presented by CHOMPS, this has been Jake's takes on Southeastern 14. We'll catch you guys next time for another episode with Jake on next Friday as we break down all these matchups and look forward to week 5 of college football. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Blayne Gilmer. That's Jake Crain. We'll catch you guys next time.